Chapter 2. Counter. 2 days later, Jeffrey woke up in the infirmary. "Finally! Good morning!" a voice in his head echoed, and the impact made him pass out again. On the third day, Jeffrey woke up again when the nurse was checking his pulse. "Oh, you're up," she said, smiling. "Thought you should be getting up around this time. How are you feeling?" she asked, putting on her stethoscope to check his heart rate. "Fine," Jeffrey said, with his parched, dried lips. "Can I have some water, please?" he asked, sitting up. "Sure, here you go," the nurse said, grabbing a cup of water from the table and handing it to him. Jeffrey grabbed the cup quickly and gulped it down. "Wow, easy. You can have some more," she said, pouring him another cup, which he gulped down as well. "You good?" the nurse asked, offering him another cup, and he was going to reject it at first, but his thirst was killing him. "One more cup, it'll be my last," Jeffrey said, pushing his cup forward for her to fill, and she did. "Good?" she asked again. "Yep," Jeffrey answered, sipping the water gently. "That's better," the nurse said, dropping the jug on the table beside the bed. She walked out of the room and sent one of the students to get the headmistress and to tell her that Fabouya was awake. "Okay," she said, going back into the infirmary. She looked at the weak face of Jeffrey Fabouya and decided to explain his current condition to him. "You've been asleep for 3 days." "Huh?" Jeffrey exclaimed. "Yep, 3 days," the nurse said as she began scribbling on a notepad. "So what happened?" she asked as she approached the bed. "Tell me everything."
Jeffrey began, trying to recollect his memories. "Punched Erick. Then I ran around and eventually had no choice but to go to the abandoned library. Then when I was hiding, I found and ran away." "What was that?" the nurse asked. "I said, I found and ran away," Jeffrey said. "What is that?" the nurse asked again. "It's found ran away," Jeffrey said, and heard himself barely make any sense. The memory of those claws became clear, and he quickly tried to explain to the nurse, but as he spoke, "found ran away," it didn't make any sense. "Stop messing around," the nurse said, finally getting angry. The whole room went quiet, and he heard a voice. "You shouldn't do that. You'll break your promise," the voice said. Jeffrey had lived in different port towns over the last 5 years, so he had heard all sorts of tales from different travelers and their encounters at sea. There was a saying that even men became kids at sea, but he had never expected this. He was possessed. Mr. Malik and the headmistress were rushing to come see Jeffrey, and they met at the door. As they entered the infirmary, they were glad to see Jeffrey looking okay and lively. "Good morning, Fabouya," they both said. "Good morning, Mr. Malik. Good morning, headmistress," Jeffrey said in reply. "How are you feeling?" Mr. Malik quickly asked. "Quite well, thank you," Jeffrey answered with a forced smile. "Good to hear," the headmistress said in relief, but Mr. Malik doubted it. "Are you sure?" Mr. Malik asked. "Anything unusual?" Jeffrey was going to answer honestly, as it seemed like Malik knew something, but he blacked out. His body was moving on its own. "Unusual?" Jeffrey's body asked as he looked up at Mr. Malik. "Nope, nothing at all," he said. Mr. Malik let out a sigh and said, "Good to hear."
The nurse did some tests to make sure Jeffrey was okay before letting him go that evening. He was given the next Friday to Sunday off, and he never once came out of his room those 3 days. Erick and the gang all those days would write insults and bang on his door every night, but he never paid attention to them. He had bigger problems. Jeffrey had spent those 3 days talking to this voice in his head. In that time, he had clarified a lot of things and was clear on his standing with the voice. It claimed that to a human like Jeffrey, he guessed he would be called a spirit, and that he had recently come to the human world. The spirit had been kicked out of his home for failing to meet their standards, so he had come down to the human world to find prestige and fame, but when he got here, he realized he knew nothing.
So he came to the best library in the region, but he didn't expect there to be so many spirit seers here, and was seen. Mr. Malik was the one who had sealed him off to that section of the library and had sent for his elder brother, who was a spirit dealer, to come catch him. But Jeffrey had entered the section, and he needed a body to hide in. "And here we are. Sorry about this," the spirit said. "You couldn't help it," Jeffrey said. "Don't worry about it." The spirit said. "Just one thing," Jeffrey asked. "Why can't I tell anyone about you?" "Oh, that," the spirit said slowly. "What's happening to my body?" Jeffrey asked, as he was scared of losing his body. "It's a contract. We're sharing it," the spirit answered bluntly. "Sharing?" Jeffrey exclaimed. "Yep, sharing. I'm not taking over," the spirit answered. "How does that work?" Jeffrey asked. "Well, your soul can move your body around, but in the end it's a vessel, and it can take more than one soul," the spirit answered. "That makes sense," Jeffrey said. "You agreed to it," the spirit said, reminding him about his swear. "I did, didn't I?" Jeffrey asked, rubbing his head. "Yep," the spirit said in assurance. "How did it turn out like this?" Jeffrey asked himself. "I just told you how I got here," the spirit answered. "Not that, like how did I get into this mess?" "Situation," Jeffrey corrected himself. "You can call it a mess," the spirit said. "I didn't mean it like that," Jeffrey said back. "Yeah, I know," the spirit said back. They both sat in awkward silence until Jeffrey remembered he had brought some contraband magazines, but he couldn't look at them with the spirit in him. "You can go ahead, I won't look," the spirit said. "I won't," Jeffrey said back. "No, really, I don't mind," the spirit said. "I said I won't," as he burst into laughter, and the spirit laughed with him as well. It was Sunday night before they knew it, and Jeffrey was depressed. "What's wrong?" the spirit asked. "Tomorrow I've got to see all those faces again." Jeffrey dropped his head. "You don't want to?" the spirit asked. "Not really," he replied. "Then where do you want to be?" the spirit asked. "The balcony of the Fabouya Eastern Estate, in the presidential suite." Jeffrey closed his eyes and began to reminisce. "The sweet scent of the ocean, the sounds of the waves, the glowing moon. I miss it," Jeffrey said. "Open your eyes," the spirit said. Jeffrey opened his eyes, and he was on the balcony and staring at the ocean. "Ooh," Jeffrey stuttered, as the situation and the beauty of the scene before him silenced him, and he smiled. After enjoying the scenery for another few seconds, Jeffrey said, "Thank you." "For what?" the spirit asked. "For this," Jeffrey said, spreading out his hand. "This is nothing. You can ask me any time," the spirit said. "It's in our contract," he added. "Really?" Jeffrey said. "What's the terms of our contract again?" "I stay in your body and lend you all my abilities, but in return, you allow me stay in your body and heal up," the spirit said. "Cool. So what abilities do you have?" Jeffrey asked. "Well, from the human perspective, I don't think there is anything I can't do," the spirit said. "You can move the sun?" Jeffrey asked. "Nope, not something that great, but a building, maybe," as Jeffrey giggled a little bit. "What?" the spirit asked. "I was just messing around. This is enough," Jeffrey said, looking at the moon. "This is enough," he whispered again, as he fell asleep. The spirit immediately took over the body and transported him back to his room and pushed him to the bed before he would completely pass out. As Jeffrey snored, the spirit remained in limbo. It wondered how his family back home was doing. It was barely a month, and so much had happened in his life. He had lost his freedom to a human, and now he was living in a human to recuperate. What a story, he thought to himself. He remembered his siblings, his little sisters and junior brother. They had far more talent than him and were already achieving amazing things, while he was still stuck in training. But he had gone free, believing he was ready, and here we are. Jeffrey smiled and turned over in his sleep, and the good emotion he was having coursed through the body, leaving a nice tingling sensation. The spirit enjoyed this very much. "It's not that bad," the spirit whispered and closed his eyes. The next morning, Dina came knocking as usual, telling them to prepare for school. While Jeffrey was sleeping, the spirit had gone around hunting the dreams of everyone on Jeffrey's floor, both boy and girl, and by extension, the entire class. When Jeffrey came out in the morning to take his bath, everyone was weary of him, and they kept their distance. Jeffrey had a nice bath and made it to class on time. Erick and the gang came late. Jeffrey turned away the moment they came in. They were giving him the dirtiest stares. "Erick, you're finally here," their maths teacher said as they walked in. "Stand in front of the class, as we discussed in the board meeting yesterday." "Yes, ma'am," they all answered. "Now, Jeffrey Fabouya, stand up," Mrs. Margaret said, and he obeyed. "These boys will be apologizing to you." "Go ahead," she said, and they all said sorry. Jeffrey didn't know it, but his eyes were dull because the spirit was dragging a lot of energy, so when he said, "I forgive you," and meant it, no one in the class believed him. Erick and the gang sat down, and class began. At lunch break, after Mrs. Margaret had left, Jeffrey stood up and offered to tell a story to the class. Jeffrey sensed danger and tried to walk out of class, but the gang and Erick jumped on him and tried to stop him, but the spirit lent him a hand and he was able to throw them off easily. Jeffrey felt good and started to bounce out in victory. "You don't belong here," Erick yelled out from the ground, but Jeffrey didn't care and wasn't listening. "Your father kissed my father's foot for you to be here," Erick yelled out, and almost every class heard him. Jeffrey stopped in his tracks, and maybe it was the spirit's influence, but his memory was clearer. He remembered hearing a noise from around the room that day as he watched his father beg for him to attend school. So he was there, Jeffrey thought to himself. "Did I lie?" Erick yelled out again. "Your father begged for you to be here. I saw it. A noble dropping on his knees to kiss his brother's foot. I saw it." Jeffrey, who had stopped in his tracks, simply swallowed it and walked away. The whole class, who had also been holding back their laughter, started to laugh. The ear-deafening noise that was coming from the class was crushing Jeffrey's soul, and the depression was spreading to the spirit. "You okay?" the spirit asked as they walked away. "Yeah, I am," Jeffrey said, trying to be strong as tears filled his eyes.
You've just finished listening to a chapter of Noise Origin. This is Blank's Library, where every story reaches new heights. If you're ready to see how this journey ends, you can find the full book right now on Amazon Kindle. Make sure to follow and turn on notifications so you're here when the next chapter drops. Thanks for listening.